wheels on fire and do a jump. At night, it could be quite spectacular, don't you think?
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Feeling good, Louis?
Those 80s kids remember.
Welcome to Those 80s Kids Remember, the podcast where we reminisce and ponder the totally bitchin' decade and ask the important questions like, who wants their MTV? And give me a what? I'm Andy, and with me today are the rest of those 80s kids.
Rob.
Greg.
No,
Right.
no Brian.
No Brian
Brian
today.
is not joining us today.
He got arrested.
Yes, or as we call it here, personal business to attend to.
And that 80s dog, Max, who you may hear from time to time.
Thanks,
Like
Max.
that.
So let's get started. This week we remember MTV.
Max wants his MTV.
Max wants his MTV. Max wants friggin' everything. But, right. All right. MTV launched August 1st, 1981. Just give you a little history here. It was on a Saturday, and this is according to Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is always right.
As the saying goes.
It was launched at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time with the words, "Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll."
Really? I didn't know that.
And the first music video showed, of course, everybody seems to know this.
The Buggles.
Video killed which is interesting because I think it was made like 2 years prior.
Was it? Well, yeah, and seeing that the music videos were made as promotional tools
Sure.
and shown on shows.
Because both of the guys from there went into Yes,
Mhm.
and at that time they were in Yes.
There you go. I did not know that.
Yeah, Yes Drama, one of their better albums.
Okay. And the second video was Pat Benatar.
Really? What Pat Benatar song?
You Better Run. And I have no recollection of
I
that
don't remember
song
that
at
song.
No, I don't remember that one either.
So,
I don't remember Pat Benatar that well anymore.
Some-
either. Whatever
you know
happened to Pat?
that one song, We Are Young.
Yeah.
Heartache to heartache.
Yes. That was
Love
Pat,
is a battlefield.
That was Pat Benatar, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was the
Pat.
one where all the
Oh, she had a
all-
couple
Yeah.
big ones, yeah.
all the girls started
Right.
dressing like Pat Benatar and
Yeah.
doing that goofy
Yeah.
dance,
And then she
everything.
vanished. I mean, then it was like you never heard of Pat Benatar. And even like nowadays, I mean, Pat Benatar live at the casino or whatever. I mean, you never even hear of her popping
Really?
up.
She gets casino gigs?
Yeah.
Well, she's doing pretty well.
Everybody gets casino gigs.
Wait, and when Pat Benatar kind of gets these gigs and everything, it's kind of like just a nostalgia type of thing.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
like she's reduced to being like what the Beach Boys are to the '60s. They're
Sure.
kind of they're just a nostalgia act.
But you
Right.
hear of Joan Jett every now and then. Oh, it's Joan Jett live, but you never hear Pat Benatar live. It's like, whatever happened to her?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right now, there's some diehard Benatar fan cursing us.
You can-
Don't you enjoy the last album
You
was
don't
the...
know.
Well, it's like Pat Benatar. I think is her image. She was so identified with that period in time.
Mhm.
Where somebody like Joan Jett was just like this badass bitch who,
Right, well-
she could have been from like any time.
And she, Joan Jett had gotten, some notoriety in the later 70s with the Runaways.
The Runaways, yeah, with Lita Ford.
Right,
She
that's
was in
when they, kind of really hit the scene. So I don't think she was a real victim of the 80s necessarily.
that. Right.
As compared to like Pat Benatar, who is like, as far as women go.
Well, some of those women have a hard time reinventing themselves, and Madonna was able to do that.
Right.
That's what made her such a successful artist, because she was able to change her image. I mean, it was like a virgin for 30 years in a row. Well,
Yeah.
nobody's going to believe you're like a virgin for 30 years.
No, I don't
but-
think anybody
but-
believed it
but
back then.
But musically, she adapted throughout time, so that's how
Right.
she lasted. Whereas
She kind of changed a little bit with
Sure,
like
well, you
every
have to.
release she put out, like David Bowie.
right,
kinda.
well, look at the Rolling Stones. Why do the Rolling Stones last so long? They changed with the times.
Yeah.
So, but artists that don't, I mean, they become a one-trick pony, and pretty soon it's like, oh, you hear the new album from so-and-so? Yeah, it sounds just like the last one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. And I think there was only so much she could exploit that look and that sound. Maybe, that could be what happened to her.
Yeah, she became very identified with that whole look, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That's
Remember
what
that
I was
scene
thinking. We've
that
got
scene in the
5 Pat
cafeteria?
Benetars here.
Yep, they're all 5, and Phoebe Cates goes out of her way to point out which girls are dressed like Pat Benatar and all this, and it's like, wow, holy 1982. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great movie. Love that movie.
But speaking of all that stuff, now originally MTV had 3 VJs. Was that right?
I think it was 5.
Was it 5?
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5.
Oh, okay. Well, it was Martha Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cigarette voice lady,
Nina Blackwood.
Nina. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the guy with the white guy afro,
Mark Goodman, right?
Mark Goodman. Yeah.
And then Adam Hunter was the very waspy guy.
Is Mark Good when they were Mark Goodman Productions? That's the same.
Yes,
right.
he was one of the producers. He was
Right, and he was
awesome.
bringing like kids shows and stuff. I think too. He was like the Nickelodeon stuff, the early.
Really?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. And then also J.J. Jackson
J.J. Jackson.
rounded out.
It's a lot of J's.
Yeah, J.J. He was the black guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the black guy.
The black guy.
I don't see.
remember.
The 3 that I remember.
Probably, I think some of them were on like late night.
Okay.
So there's probably
okay.
a time where you didn't see.
I'm probably remembering the ones that were on like during the week.
day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember China Cantner. Wasn't she on there?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't think she was.
China Cantner was. Paul Cantner's daughter.
Yes, but I don't. She wasn't an original.
I remember later on in the mid '80s, Adam Curry came along too. Adam Curry had the blonde hair, the Aquanet hair that was all teased up and pointing out this way and all bushy.
I don't think he was too far off the launch. I think they added him within a year or 2.
Okay,
it seems like.
Yeah,
I don't have that written down. I didn't look into that, but yes, he wasn't too far from the original launch of the MTV.
Then you had Kurt Loder who came on like during the MTV
News.
He was like 50 years old,
bringing some credibility to the network.
Yes, he was like a news guy.
He was a news guy,
yeah.
you know, and so they added him to like report the music news, and he was just the stern kind of. Well, shouldn't say stern, but he was the serious journalist, music journalist. This is what happened, and it was like every hour on the hour, just like your typical news kind of format.
He was looked at that way. He was.
The thing that MTV did, which was even more so than putting music videos on, it was like one of the first channels to actually put a specific type of programming on the air.
Yeah,
because you think way back then you didn't have a lot of this. Now I guess ESPN was around at that time too, but it was like an unknown. Wasn't ESPN early 80s, late 70s? Right?
In its infancy,
Right, but I mean, nowadays it's like, the baking channel, the croquet channel. There's a channel for everything, and it was back then there wasn't anything like this. It was a very novel idea to have a channel just of music.
Mm-hmm. And it was like channel. 24 hours.
Yeah.
And even still, when it came out, most networks didn't stay on air
24
hours.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that and then, of course, then after that, the CNN and the 24-hour
news
cycle.
The news was big.
I think it's kind of what forced networks into programming 24 hours a day, even if that meant infomercials.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny about that? It's like, it's younger folk might not remember that, but there used to be the thing they'd play like the national anthem with, jet fighters flying or whatever, be like 1 or 2 in the morning. What was also interesting back then was like late night or early morning TV actually had good stuff on. So that's when you'd see like old reruns of Batman or Kung Fu or something. And nowadays, if you ever turn on the TV at 1, 2 in the morning, it's all infomercials.
Right.
So it's almost like, why don't you just take that off anyway?
I know.
I mean, you got insomnia, you're screwed nowadays because there's nothing on it.
Unless you have cable.
Even though you check out the whatever channel, and at 1, 2, 3 in the morning, they're playing infomercials.
No, I know. And there are some channels, believe me, I know, because I fall asleep with the TV on every night. And for some reason, as soon as their regular programming is done and an infomercial come on, I'm like up within 5 minutes of that infomercial being on. I don't know why. I think they have something subconsciously put into their
subliminal message.
Yes, to wake you. That's my conspiracy theory.
There's a
right
ghost
there.
under the bed.
They like wake you up so that you'll buy their shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a couple of channels that have like programming throughout the night with their shows. It's like commercials come on and they won't wake me up, and just their programming, but the infomercial without fail.
You subconsciously want to buy their products.
12:30 in the morning was the only time you could see Benny Hill, I think, too.
Yes.
because it was like too risky back then, But
Hill.
yeah, they put Benny Hill on like 12:30 in the morning.
And then also, I don't want to get too far off the subject, but another show that I love that was usually played Saturday nights on NBC after Saturday Night Live was SCTV.
Oh, SC, yeah.
Love that show.
See, I remember watching that show, seeing that in reruns on Nick at Night.
Oh, really?
Back around like 1990, 89,
okay.
90. I remember getting caught up with that show because I had never heard of it before then. I'm sitting here, I was like, oh, wow. I was like, John Candy?
Yeah.
Rick Moranis? Eugene Levy? I was like, holy crap.
Was the shit.
It's the whole Hoser thing, too, right?
Oh, my God. Yes, Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't want to detract too much
Yeah.
from the MTV subject.
I just thought it was a good point to point out, though, that this was kind of a unique thing at the time.
Right.
To have a 24, because I mean, back then it was just kind of like you had a regular station. I mean, you didn't even have movie stations, with the exception of you had like HBO or Showtime.
Yeah.
But even so, you didn't have like classic movies, and well, movies were classic at that time yet, but you just didn't have something like this.
Right.
Another thing MTV did was with programming. Lowering people's attention spans.
Yeah.
MTV contributed hugely to this with the videos jump
Right.
cutting all the time
Right.
I thought about that.
to keep kids' attention, and all of a sudden that started dripping over into movies and
Yeah.
TV shows.
And the parents getting up in arms about how MTV was destroying the youth. I know my aunt was a big
Really?
Ronald
vocalist,
Reagan probably was too. Yeah.
about how just the degradation of our youth and how it's going to ruin our children and all this kind of crap was like, you're more conservative adults kind of,
It's the same thing they said about Elvis in the 50s.
Yeah,
Right.
them Beatles is gonna kill us all. It did change music, though. It changed music from just being heard to now being seen.
Mm-hmm.
It actually started with disco. Disco was like one of the first ones to do that because you started getting in a lot of that, and there was actually a lot of videos associated with disco music.
Right.
There were videos back then, like what's the Goofy Rolling Stones? You're the big Stones. What was the big Goofy Rolling Stones that only rock and roll? Is that the one they're like?
That was from 74.
That's from 74, right? And that was like a
It
promotional
was just
video.
a promotional
Sure.
video that they played on Midnight Special or
Sure,
something.
sure. So you'd have like a promotional video, but to actually, when you put out an album or record,
Right.
you'd actually, okay, this is gonna be the song we want to release, and then you'd release the single to the radio station, and you'd
you had to make a
release the video about it.
And that reminds me that there were like two different types of music videos. You had your concept music video, and then you had your live performance
Oh,
video.
Yeah, like performing where they're lip syncing in the studio to the song.
And otherwise you had the story that went along with your music video. Like a live music video would be like, the first thing that comes to mind would be like Van Halen's Jump.
Yeah.
Where they're just, pretending to play their instruments. And then you had your more concepts. What am I thinking of? I'm trying to think.
Heartbeat by Don Johnson.
Wow.
Remember that video where it's like the song "Heartbeat" by Don Johnson? It's like it's like some little adventure movie that he's going on, and it just adds to the enjoyment because the song is so cheesy to begin with, but the video's cheesy on top of it.
I do not remember it.
Looking for a heartbeat.
That's something that's not around either. They used to be the thing, if you were a popular person in a TV show, you got your own record. Like the Bo and Luke Duke, Tom Schneider, right? All of a sudden,
John Schneider became a country singer for a few years. Yeah.
But I want to say, like, all those, didn't even Magnum P.I., Tom Selleck have something?
I don't know. Travolta did.
Travolta did, yeah.
He had an album. He had a couple albums that went out. One of them was Travolta Fever.
What?
Not
Where?
Mr. Gotta.
When?
That was the opening cut called What, When, Where.
What?
No, I remember seeing footage of him on American Bandstand singing the song "Let Her In."
I've seen that. Yes.
It's really comical. The guy can't sing. He just like got this goofy grin on his face. He's like, "Gonna let her in, gonna let her in," and all the girls in the audience are just, "Oh, John,
I'm gonna get laid from this song. You don't understand." But so like when you had your own TV show, then you put out like, and I think once MTV kind of came in, you started to get away from some of that. Yeah, it's like it's like I mean, just think of any show from back then. I mean,
David Soul from Starsky and Hutch had a song that charted. I can't remember what it was called, but it was just some sappy, sentimental crap that was popular at that time.
Or even back further, like the Brady Bunch would have put out an album or whatever. I mean, they tried to like tie it in, and it's all marketing to make more money. And then MTV came along. Yeah, we probably shouldn't have Don Johnson or Billy D. Williams singing this or
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, Eddie Murphy at that time
my
was
girl.
Stick in the Butt song. Wasn't he the one that did that?
Party all the time.
Put little man in your butt and something.
What?
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm serious.
He had an album.
He had a song on there. Something about sticking in your butt.
I don't.
Put a little man in your butt.
Party all the time.
I'll find that one.
My girl.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It was on his first comedy album where he actually.
Yeah. Okay.
They did I know what you're talking about. It was his first comedy album where they had an instrumental track that they played when he was doing stand-up, and he sang over it. It was called "Stick It in Your Butt," I think.
Yeah, no, he had a serious musical.
Yeah, party all the time.
Yeah. This isn't a
girl
comedy
wants
album.
to party all the time.
This was music.
Yeah, Rick James produced it.
Yeah.
Rick James was in the video with it.
Yep. So that
it
still did happen.
But the song's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just.
And part of what hurt it too is that Eddie, when you watch the video now, Eddie is taking the whole thing so damn seriously too. Like he's a pop star now.
Yeah.
He's gotten a little too big to just be a movie star and just be the #1 comedian in the world. Now he needs to be a pop star too, because he wasn't getting laid enough.
Not enough money.
Well, and what kills me is if you go on Google and Google funniest hairband videos or cheesiest hairband videos. Some of those hairband videos have got these Mad Max type plots where there's somebody out to destroy rock or something like that, and they're dressed up in their armor and their frickin' Aquanet hair.
Not even the hair metal bands. What is
Well, I'm thinking that Love is a Battlefield like we were talking. That was kind of a...
The Thunderdome. Who is she? Oh, my God.
Oh, Tina Turner.
Tina Turner, yes. Did the Thunderdome, the Mad Max, the Thunderdome thing? Yes, that's
great
exactly,
movie.
yes.
What song was that?
The Thunderdome, I thought.
Great flick.
Yeah, where she does that. The whole thing, she gets dolled up in the Mad Max kind of garb, and then they have the battle in the Thunderdome in the video.
Oh, not too much. That's going to be a future show, perhaps. It's one of my movies.
Well, that's fine. We can do that. We're talking about
the
video.
Warrior. But, and I can't remember what I think was the last podcast we did. That's just, again, that whole thing that all is that here comes the future. It's so bleak. We don't know what's going to happen. The world's going to end. We're all going to be eating rats.
Towards the end of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And like I said, the whole thing, with people coming to destroy rock, that was like a whole subgenre of videos. Oh, these guys are saying you can't rock anymore, blah 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 blah. but then Wasp or Twisted Sister or whatever would come out and be like, oh yeah, here's Blackie Lawless to save the day, and then they start jamming their song, and all the teenage boys are like, yeah man, they're saving us with their rock, and everybody took that stuff. Everybody thought it was kind of badass at the time. Of course, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
look back on it. It's so cheesy.
But there were videos banned from MTV. There were some. What? You know what comes? I mean, you guys probably never even heard this song. There was a Golden Earrings song, and I want to say it was When the Lady Smiles. It was 83, 84. It was banned because there was some suggestive stuff with a nun
Really?
Yeah. So there was stuff that was banned. It might have been played once or twice, then somebody complained.
Wouldn't play it again. Well, there was a big controversy too when when they first came out, when they first started going on air, that the lack of black artists.
That was a big thing.
They wouldn't play
Michael Jackson kind of,
and they wouldn't play Rick James.
Is Michael Jackson black though?
It was back then. They wouldn't play. They played Prince. From what I've read, they played Prince songs.
Yeah, a lot of Prince.
But they would not, play the black artist because they said it didn't fit into their AOR format of what it was supposed to be.
It's a white station.
Basically.
What we're trying to say. And then Los Lobos came along and ruined everything. It was...
Michael Jackson, it was Thriller probably kicked those doors down pretty big.
Right, because you don't remember, he had his Billie Jean video, but you don't really remember seeing that in the early days of MTV. He was pretty popular.
But Thriller doesn't count, because they all painted themselves with white faces and looked like zombies anyway. So technically they weren't black in the video.
And that's also another concept video I should mention, you had the two. But you didn't see his Billie Jean video prior to, him being really popular with Thriller. Once that came out, and then they're like, oh, he's got all these other videos that it's like, well, this is old. This isn't new. So, yeah, there was the huge controversy of, they're not playing black artists, which kind of led to the later years in the 80s of when they brought Yo MTV Raps out, because they had all of their other shows like 120 Minutes and Headbangers Ball.
When they started getting niche shows,
Yeah, right. We can't just... There was a time where we can only play so many videos within this format, and they had to, basically cater to their audience. Well, we're not, these guys aren't watching it because we're not playing this, and this group isn't watching it because we're not playing this. So that's how they came up with 120 Minutes, which was my favorite show on MTV, which was the alternative kind of college rock.
Sure.
I shouldn't say college.
Such
rock.
as?
Alternative music. Oh God, they played REM.
I was going to say early
before they were
yes,
big.
they would never play REM in regular rotation. It was only on 120 Minutes until the End of the World as We Know It song came out, and then they just all over the place. So
Stand in the place where you live.
So The Cure, that would be another one.
Susie and the Banshees, Sisters of Mercy, Jesus and Mary Chain.
Sisters of Mercy.
Sisters
well,
of
now
Mercy.
we're getting into that gleepy.
Well, the more goth. Bauhaus would be played.
Bauhaus,
yes.
wow.
And then Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Killing Joke. How's that?
Killing Joke, Midnight Oil.
Remember the song 80's?
Yes.
In the 80s by Killing Joke was pretty good.
I've got that one on video too.
Wow.
But so that's where they played their more alt. And it was 2 hours. Why they called it 120 Minutes. And I think it was on Sunday nights. I was too young to stay up, so I had to videotape it. So that's how I got to watch it.
Videotape with a
VHS.
Yeah.
Video. What's that? You mean DVR? Nope. And then that was in 86, and then 87 is when they brought around Headbangers Ball to cater to the hair metal.
Yeah, I remember watching
genre.
Headbangers Ball a number of times, yes.
Hated it.
I liked it. I just, some of the stuff where they got into the thrashy stuff, I never got into.
Oh, yeah.
I was never into the let's sing about death stuff,
Okay,
well,
you're more...
The Headbangers, though, became... What was it? More of the chick-oriented people that wear makeup?
Well, I think that there was kind of a mix. I mean, I didn't watch it, so I couldn't say for sure, but I think there was a mix. I think it kind of started with your Poison and that sort of hair metal, but then they also peppered in with your more
Judas
death
Priest
and your classic metal.
Did Slayer have videos? I'm trying to remember if Slayer actually had videos.
Probably.
The Slayer was considered the top,
Oh yeah,
most radical at the time.
Chicks didn't listen.
No. We're
See, chicks didn't really listen to stuff that was that you could read about in Hit Parader or Circus Magazine until Poison came around. Maybe Rat as well.
Right.
Rat might have done that as well when they came out with Round and Round and stuff like that. That probably got women a little more interested.
What else did they come out with besides Round and Round? I'm trying to remember another Rat song.
I Want a Woman.
I remember the album. I remember Out of the Cellar.
Way Cool Jr.
I remember Out of the Cellar. That was their big one, I want to say, but I don't remember anything else by Rat.
Yeah. Well, they had a couple of songs here and there that popped up. Snuck Out of the Cellar. Yeah, that was terrible. Feel free to edit that out if you'd like.
So yeah, they had that, and then of course in '88, Yo MTV Raps.
Yo MTV Raps. That was a very specific genre they were catering to there.
Right. Yeah, but the rap music, and from that, I think that probably came into being not only because rap music was starting to really kind of make a real good dent, in the popularity of, in the music genre. But then you also had the crossover, which kind of made it okay for the white guys to like the rap music with the Run DMC.
Walk This Way.
And Aerosmith and Walk This Way, which, was breakthrough.
Oh, yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, I think it might have been Behind the Music or something like that, where I watched, with Aerosmith and the story of Walk This Way and Run DMC. And I guess to begin with, Steven Tyler was just like totally against it because, what are these guys doing to my song and all this and that. But eventually, they came around and they went and, hung out with Run DMC and, actually listened to what they were doing. He was like, oh, this is like really cool. So it really kind of helped to break the barrier, I guess, a racial barrier or whatever between rock and roll and rap music and, what came after that, hip hop and all that kind of stuff.
I still think they should have done a rap version of Mr. Roboto. You're wondering who I am, Machino Mannequin with the parts made in Japan. I am the modern man. Wouldn't that have been awesome?
There you go.
That would have been great. I was thinking they should have done
NWA missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, but that was something very unique when they did that, when Run DMC did that, because I think that was pioneering. Because it was a trend that continued. I mean,
Right.
What are they? There's a term for that.
Sampling.
Sampling. There you go. Thank you very much.
Where a lot of, the sampling of your rock songs, your traditional rock song is brought into your rap songs and
a lot of old R&B and funk stuff from the 70s. You'd be amazed how many rap songs since the 90s use old funk and R&B stuff.
And still today, I know that's still being done.
You never find a Dan Fogelberg song sampled. They're still waiting for the first.
You don't know why. Why is that?
Loggins and Messina or something,
Are we getting Rocky Mountain High, y'all? Line it up, man.
Jim Croce. Time in a bar.
Yo, operator.
Well, imagine the Edmund Fitzgerald. Who did that? That's Gordon Lightfoot. Imagine sampling the Edmund Fitzgerald. Edmund Fitzgerald. I never quite could figure out any of the lyrics to that.
No. Like every once in a while, you'd understand him saying Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm singing, running, finding,
and then the rest of the time he's just mumbling out.
Edmund Fitzgerald. Good drinking song.
So, and then of course, MTV, they kind of expanded. They, music can only get you so far, and then they started airing like their non-music programs.
Yes.
Which basically is what they've turned into.
Which
today.
Was the beginning of the end. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is and it was a pretty good beginning. I mean, they had and they must have had like some executive changes that really fucked things up in the 90s. But one of the first non-music shows that they aired was The Young Ones. And I know Craig said that he wasn't too familiar with them.
I'm not too familiar with them either.
Like a drama show or something.
Fuck no.
What was it?
It was a comedy. It was a British comedy.
It was a Brit, yeah.
Yeah, and they first aired it on MTV in 1985, and it was a BBC show from 82 to 84. So it was kind of like, leftovers, I guess, from... Oh. And this show, I mean, you have to. You have to watch this show. You have to go do what you have to do to find it on the internet, because this show, there was a good so many years that I lived this show, and my brothers and my sister and I, everything was the freaking Young Ones.
Well, what was the show's concept?
It was 4 college students, 4 college guys. Couldn't be different. Couldn't be any more different.
Right.
In their personalities. You had Vivian, who was played by Adrian Edmondson, who was your punk rocker with the spiky hair and the sleeves off jean jacket with the spikes, everything.
Kind of like I'm dressed now.
Yeah, just like
Exactly.
Rob is now. And then you had Rick, who was played by Rick Mayall, who was your kind of alternative guy, your pretentious, drain pipe pant wearing kind of guy, and fight the power kind of thing going on.
Life is pain. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you had you had Neil, who was played by Nigel Planner, who was the hippie. Like the throwback from the 60s, the long hair, no peace and love, man, that kind of thing. And then you had Mike, who was played by Christopher Ryan, who was just a sleazeball. And it was just like the sleazeball of the group. And it's kind of hard to describe what his character was supposed to be, because I really didn't get it other than like the sleazeball and the guy who was like trying to make the money and kind
He's
of
a yuppie?
Not a yuppie.
Oh.
I wouldn't say yuppie, but he was kind of the norm.
Conservative.
The
He's like
norm
the
of the
conservative of the group. Okay.
I don't think he didn't even give a shit. It was, I don't think he could even give a shit to be called a conservative, but he was just the normal guy.
Yeah.
I think would probably be the best way to put him. But they lived in this rundown house or apartment in London, I think it was, and there was a lot of puppetry going on, and they had, well, I shouldn't say a lot, there was some puppetry going on.
Okay, all right.
And then they would have a musical guest at times. Motorhead was one of their musical guests, and then The Damned. Just a fucking great show.
How did the musical guests get worked in?
They would just be in the scene, and like with the Damned,
Roscoe pull them over in a speed trap, or what?
No. They would just just pop up. They would just pop up in the middle of the freaking room, in the middle of the scene. They would.
Oh, hey, it's Lemmy.
And then, yeah.
Motorhead.
And then, the one with Motorhead in it, they were like on a train, and they were going to this place, and I can't remember if Motorhead was like on the house set, or if they were like somewhere in like a trade station, like playing the song, kind of like a montage kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is basically how it would be, a segue montage kind of thing where the band would play.
My God, how have I never heard of this show before?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. I've definitely heard. I think I've seen it, but it wasn't my thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But no, I've definitely heard of it. It was popular. It was kind of an underground, culty, popular kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was on TV well after this. You have 82 to 84 or something.
Well, that's when it
On
originally
BBC.
aired on BBC.
But in America, it was late 80s.
In America, the first time it was aired was 85
right.
on MTV.
And it was on for many years.
It was on and there was only so many episodes, but they would replay and replay, and there's so many one-liners from that show that I still remember that basically turned to inside jokes.
Oh,
with
sure.
me and my family and stuff like that. Just great stuff.
What?
Yeah, so that was basically one of the first non-music oriented shows that they played on MTV, and then not too shortly after that, they came out with their game show. Remote Control.
That I don't remember.
I used to watch that every afternoon.
Yeah. That was a great show. That was, as far as, game shows go, that was like pretty edgy.
It was on at a time of the afternoon where I was watching it over the summer, I remember. Uh-huh. Because there was no school going on. Otherwise it was on while we were at school.
Right.
But yeah, Colin Quinn was on it.
Mm-hmm.
There was the host. I can't remember the host's name.
I can't either.
Little like brown-haired guy.
Yeah. I think he went on to work on some Nickelodeon game shows. Maybe.
My favorite part of the show was always sing along with Colin. Whenever that category would get picked.
Right.
Because then Colin Quinn, who had he had this voice, they would have him pick up a microphone and he would start singing a line of a song, and then whoever picked that category had to sing the next line of the song when Colin stopped.
Yeah.
And Kari Wurr was on that show too. She was insanely hot. This is years before she went on to do like Skinamax type movies. Kari Wurr was in all sorts of nudie movies in the 90s.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Didn't know that.
Nothing's as good as Beat the Whammy. What was that game show?
Press Your Luck.
Press Your Luck.
No whammy.
Beat the Whammy.
Right, like whammy would come out. Nothing beat Dwayne.
Yeah, but the remote control really kind of launched Colin Quinn's career.
Yeah.
As far as, comedian. He went on to Saturday Night Live not too long
He
after
did
that.
Update and
Yeah.
stuff like that, yeah.
And I think even there might have been an episode where Jon Stewart was in one of the little extra things. They'd sometimes have people come out. I think there was I can't remember all the categories, but there was something where they had the players would come out and they'd reenact this scene or something like that. And I think Jon Stewart, was actually one of the...
And then the contestant would have to guess what they were reenacting.
Something like that, yeah. I just remember that there sometimes there would be other people come out and
And then there was wasn't there 3 contestants in every episode?
Yeah.
And then 2 of them would end up getting eliminated.
Right.
Because they were sitting in chairs. They were sitting in
Lazy
these
boys,
big lazy boys.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when they got eliminated, the lazy boy would
tip over,
tip backwards, and they would get dumped out of the chair into some trap door.
Yeah.
And then they would have to whoever was the winner out of the 3, they would have these what was it 9 little television screens in front of them,
right?
And they would have to guess the artist of the videos,
right?
They would have to guess all 9 of them in a minute,
right?
Yeah, and if they did that, then they won the whole show.
Right. God, I forgot about that.
Yep.
The final round, they had to name the artist. Was it the artist and the song?
I don't remember. I think it was just the artist.
Wow, boy.
But I could be wrong about that.
Oh, I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen Remote Control.
I don't remember.
It was interesting though. It was a good idea.
No, I just remembered that with the different shows that they had or the videos that they had to name. So and then also really big Live Aid, of course, was aired on MTV. They actually aired the entire thing. And that's all their programming was for more than 24 hours. Or I'm sorry, 16 hours.
16.
just a bit shy of 24 hours. But they showed the whole thing from London and Philadelphia. Of course, Live Aid being the brainchild of Bob Geldof and I think here Midge Uru, the lesser known.
I don't know.
To raise, famine relief for Ethiopia.
That's what I thought it was.
That's
they were raising money for some third world country somewhere. Yeah.
Yep. So I don't have a list of all of the people who played.
Well, Led Zeppelin played,
and I know U2 played, which I think is what kind of inspired Bono to go down his kind of whole
lane path.
Yes.
his second coming of Jesus path.
Exactly.
Right? We've got to feed the children and clothe the
poor. It's kind of shot him to the forefront. And
yes.
I mean, before that, it was real kind of weird because U2 was a bit of an underground band also. And I mean, listen to Boy.
Right.
That's just completely different
kind
stuff.
Of punk rock.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden this, and then when was Joshua Tree?
Joshua Tree was
87. And that was then they just completely...
Joshua Tree was a great album. I'm sorry, but I was
they were good. They were good albums. All of them were good albums.
They were my band in high school. Everybody had their bands. U2 was my band.
Yeah, they were overrated.
And when
they were one of the most overrated bands. They were good, but they were overrated.
Right. When they went to shit, in my opinion, was with Rattle and Hum. That's really, really got bad. But then, yes, I mean, basically, Live Aid ruined Bono.
Throughout the 90s, too, Bono just became a even more insufferable douchebag.
Well,
as the decade went on.
That was the thing that happened with him, and it was and then every radio station just worshipped U2. All of a sudden it was you couldn't get enough U2, and you'd turn the radio on, and every 30 minutes there would be U2
with or without you.
Yeah. So it's just everybody. They became the media darlings all of a sudden as a result of this, which is just...
Yeah.
And again, that's why I say they're so overrated. They're good, but they're just overrated. They weren't that great. I think they got overkill. I know you love U2. So
kind of the Michael Jackson effect.
Right. And I mean, their music, I think, eventually kind of suffered, and I don't want to make this into a U2 segment, but I mean, I think that's from what I've read, because I was such a huge fan of U2. I would read every Rolling Stone or Spin article, or even Time magazine. There was, they were on the cover of Time magazine at least once because of the Joshua Tree thing. So, and I know how much Live Aid had an impact on Bono personally about having gone to Ethiopia and then seeing it firsthand, and that's kind of where he...
And then he realized he was, in fact, Jesus.
Yes. Right.
Anyway, Queen played there, though.
Did Queen play?
Yep.
Oh my
Queen.
God, there was like the
Queen,
thing.
Zeppelin. I want to say Black Sabbath reunited too, didn't they?
Did they? See, like I said, I don't have a list of all.
Well, I think like Phil Collins probably played there.
Yeah.
Like Sting maybe too. I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I think
Bob Dylan.
In Excess played there too. I think.
Probably.
Yeah, there. I mean, just everybody who was anybody.
Culture Club.
Madonna.
Madonna was at Live
I think. At one of the shows.
That I don't recall.
She'd have to be. How could she not be?
Wow.
I mean, she was like, this was what, 85?
Yeah.
She was pretty freaking popular in 85.
No black artists.
What?
No black artists.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, we were talking before about it was like MTV was kind of steered.
I know,
but I'm just thinking like about all this. Like, I'm not. You know.
I don't know.
Where's Richie Havens?
I don't know. He could have been there.
He was at Woodstock.
I know it's a joke.
But
where's Jimi Hendrix? Where's Shilla No No? Didn't Shilla No No play there?
As a Stones fan, I remember seeing the footage of Keith Richards and Ron Wood when they were playing with Bob Dylan, and it's kind of they're so not of that time period. Because like Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, and Ron Wood all came up there and they were all like high and drunk and all this stuff and singing Bob Dylan's old protest songs from the 60s and among all of this like Aquanet hair stuff and everything. Yeah. It was just so out of its time. And then Mick Jagger was on by himself. And he was in the process of turning himself into Mr. Pop Star.
She's the boss.
Yeah, he was trying to become the next Michael Jackson, basically. Yeah. And he's coming out there in his freaking leotards and his freaking and these bright colored clothes and hey, what's up, everybody? I'm like clean living family man, Mick Jagger. Yeah,
that was Mick Jagger.
Yeah, he was like reinventing himself as a pop star at that time because he was sick of the Stones. Yeah, he was sick of being in the Stones at that time.
Well, the cover of Dirty Work is pretty funny.
He was like trying to reestablish himself as like some sort of clean living family man who never actually did need drugs when he was with the Stones. It was just all part of his image and all that.
Well, that didn't.
So I'm currently looking at a list of the artists. The Hooters. Remember the Hooters?
Well, of course.
The Hooters. I was going to say the Who wasn't.
Everyone loves the Hooters.
Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend were there.
Billy Ocean.
Oh, Billy Ocean.
Run DMC. This was in Philadelphia.
Oh, they did this from multiple locations.
Yeah, it was
London. Well, it was London and Philadelphia.
And Judas Priest.
Really, that I didn't know. Judas Priest.
Santana.
Judas Priest.
Madonna was there.
Yep.
Yeah.
The lead singer in his gay club gimp outfits.
What's worse is the drummer from that band. You heard about the drummer?
No.
Well, that main drummer from Judas Priest, that was like late 70s to late 80s. I mean, he ended up like enticing some young boy, some teenage boy, and then he went to prison for it. He might even still be in prison for it, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was like giving them drum lessons, but it was a little more than drum lessons. Yeah, I mean, check it out.
Now you just wrap your hands around the stick.
Just grab onto the stick like that. There you go. There you go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
So other than the cause itself...
Back to Live Aid.
Yeah. Other than the cause itself, the big deal about Live Aid was Elton John's performance. Because he performed on both stages.
Is he gay? Just curious. Let's just ask.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe. No.
Yep.
But yeah, he that was the big deal. He performed both in London and Philadelphia. And these concerts went on pretty much simultaneously. So that was the big deal. He played London first.
So he flew from one location.
He jumped on the Concorde and then flew to Philly and then jumped on stage in Philly.
The Concorde.
The Concorde.
Wow, do they make those anymore?
No, they didn't because of a horrible, nasty crash that happened not too long ago, like in the last 10, 15 years maybe or something like that.
Goofiest looking plane.
But so that was the big deal. Other than, like feeding Africa or anything like that, it was Elton John's going to play 2 continents for this damn show,
Huh.
So yeah, and that was the whole thing.
Was Farm Aid then? I wasn't associated with MTV, was it? Because that was the John Cougar Mellencamp deal.
And Willie Nelson.
Yeah. Because what happened was Live Aid came, and then Farm Aid was right after it. Because Mellencamp had the old Blood on the Scarecrow tune, which was right about this time, and it was all trying to raise awareness of how.
And Willie Nelson liked growing weed.
Well, John Cougar probably did too. Should have been more tobacco with John Cougar Mellencamp, but
that son of a bitch said he had a 5-pack a day smoking.
Yeah, who didn't back in the day?
5 packs a day.
John Cougar?
Yes.
Yeah, he was.
That was on his Behind the Music thing I saw.
Well, he had like 10 heart attacks. He probably still smokes, but.
Well, see, that's funny because I'm just remembering he went through a myriad of name changes.
Yeah, John Cougar
Mellencamp,
Cougar Mellencamp.
John Cougar, or John Mellencamp. And...
John Mellon Cougar Camp. He was at for a while.
Then he had Melanie Cougar when he tried to do the whole cross-dressing thing, but that didn't go over too well.
Yep. You could kind of tell he wasn't actually a woman.
Yeah, and he just wasn't into it, but he tried, and he sang a whole bluegrass album as Melanie Cougar.
People noticed that Melanie had an Adam's apple, and it was kind of like, hey, wait a second. They put that together with the name, and they're like, wait a minute, this is John Cougar.
All right, so and then of course MTV launched a whole big deal about the music videos, so that there were other networks trying to follow suit as far as getting on that bandwagon. And then you had WTBS, they had Night Tracks, which I barely remember at all, probably because I had MTV, so I didn't watch it.
Just one of those late night
probably
video program things, yeah.
And then NBC had their Friday night videos.
That I do remember.
Which
I remember Friday night videos.
Which then turned into just Friday night. They dropped the videos from it, and I think they kind of went on to other things with it.
I remember watching the video for I Can't Drive 55 by Sammy Hagar when I was like 7 years old. I was over at my friend's house, and we were staying up late on the Friday night there and watching that video.
Yeah.
It's like, because it was like, I can't remember, somebody was like trying to kill Sammy in that video or something, but Sammy was like indestructible. They hooked Sammy up to an electric chair towards the end, and he's like, oh, and he like busted out of the electric chair.
I'm going to play for Van Halen! You can't stop me! David Lee Roth sucks!
Yeah, they were fans of David Lee Roth, apparently.
And then there's one other show that I just kind of wanted to mention that came before MTV, technically, and this was on the USA Network, and it was Night Flight.
Oh,
and it was music oriented, but then they also kind of had their more subculture kind of thing. They first aired on June 5th in 1981, so they had 2 months ahead of MTV, and then they had their Takeoff segment, which was like on a specific kind of subject, like take off to this. I can't even think of what to say. But
Take Off.
Yeah. Take Off to Rush. Rush was really popular back then too.
Oh.
So yeah, that's what they would have, like these in-depth segments about the bands, and then they'd play some videos from them, but it was also informative.
Oh, it was kind of like that British show from the 70s. What am I thinking of? The Old Grey Whistle Test. You ever seen footage of that?
Oh, yeah.
With that guy who whispered all the time. You could barely see. Well, he had buck teeth and he whispered all the time, and he was like balding up time. And, hello, welcome to our program.
You just described every BBC show there ever was.
Today we're going to have Jimmy Page on this.
Tonight on PBS, the mating season of the Dragonfly.
Yeah, it was the Old Grey Whistle.
Sure,
test.
I remember that. Yeah.
You can find footage on full episodes on MTV, on YouTube, where they would interview people, and then they would play up like a promotional video of them, or them lip syncing to the song on the stage, on the set of the show. And then they would cut back to the interview again, where they would talk about their latest release and all this.
It wasn't really like that at all. It was more of a magazine.
Well, then forget everything that I just said.
A magazine, you say?
It was more like a magazine kind of package as far as, like television goes, as far as magazine goes. So it was they'd have the videos, and then they'd like kind of turn the sound down on the song, and then they'd have this female announcer come in and tell you tidbits about this and that, and like go into the next. So she was kind of like a DJ or kind of thing, and then go into the next thing. So that's basically how that was. And then it wasn't just music. They would play movies too. And the one movie that really sticks out to me that they played was Fantastic Planet.
Oh, the original.
The animation thing.
That's cool.
This movie is just kind of like out there.
Nope.
Yeah.
Like if you haven't.
So you just lost me there. I have no idea what you're talking about.
That is good.
It's really good, and it's really kind of like.
That's a classic.
I suppose if you smoked pot, I mean, it would just totally.
I was gonna say,
your
is
mind.
It one of the things you got to be on weed for, man?
Well, no, because I was young and I didn't smoke.
No.
But it was just kind of one of the.
When you're a kid, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just like it's one of those things that's just like totally, it just kind of like leaves an impression on you, and it was just like a really good movie. So yeah, that was Night Flight and Takeoff, and basically what they did. So everybody was trying to like be MTV there for a while.
Take off.
Yeah, I mean, there were the predecessors, Don Kirshner's rock concerts. That was a late night thing. Remember Don Kirshner?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So, but I mean, even our, I gotta say, Solid Gold. Remember your Solid Gold? That was a good one.
Andy Gibb hosted that for a little while before he got kicked off for not showing up and doing too much coke.
But there were some of those predecessor shows where they try to establish a music format, but again, as it all goes back to the beginning, MTV was very unique in this, having 24 hours of one type of program.
Yep.
And, all music. I mean, it's,
Yep.
And now, I mean, MTV is what? Do they even play music?
Not usually.
They're branched off channels. Dude.
Yeah, there's like MTV2, MTV Trace, which is like the Latin, which they actually play music on that.
Who involved in MTV would think, like, in the future, that they would have contributed down the road to, like, people not being able to hear or understand anybody else's viewpoint, because now everything in entertainment is so segregated and so like, okay, this is one viewpoint, and you get to sit there and watch a station that is your viewpoint,
right,
that you want all the time, and you never hear any other point of view on anything. And so it's like, if you hear a different point of view, you can't.
You're stupid. What
do
you know?
You're not used to it, so people are just growing up with this idea of, if anybody has a different idea, well, I'm just going to shut them out. I don't want to hear this crap.
Right. Well, and another thing we should mention, what MTV really had a huge impact, because I think they were the first network that had a reality TV show. You could go back to the 70s. There's the one that the PBS did, but I don't remember the name of it, but that was, I forget what it was.
Benny Hill?
No.
I'm sorry.
I forget what the name of it was. They did a movie about it not too long ago with Tim Robbins, but that's beside the point. They really came up with the reality
real world.
television with the real world, which just basically plagues TV today.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper to have a bunch of unknowns.
Especially they're to blame.
Especially get a bunch of inbreds from, the hills.
Right.
Hey, let's put 5 inbreds together and have them go out and find Sasquatch. Sounds like a good movie to me, man.
It's amazing they haven't found him yet.
Yes, especially down there.
They will.
Cousin Billy, is that you?
So yeah, I mean, it's had a huge impact, MTV. Believe it or not, even though they don't play music anymore.
No.
VH1 does, which is kind of a spin-off. Which at the time, when the 80s, VH1, when it came out, it was more like the unhip adult.
Yeah, exactly.
Movie.
It was throwback.
Yeah.
It was kind of throwbacky kind of stuff, yeah.
And that's where they played the Billy Ocean and your more soft rock kind of thing. And it's like, I don't watch VH1. But now VH1, actually, believe it or not, they play music videos at night. Well, I think MTV might
I think
For
MTV's
couple
got like
hours,
a couple
like an
hours. Yeah.
Insomniac kind of thing where they play like a 2-hour block of music videos. And
It's
that's
like their
about it.
non-programming that runs
Right.
overnight.
Everybody else is asleep, so put some music videos on, you know. So
it's either this or an infomercial. Take
right.
your pick.
Yeah. Right. Basically, yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, I mean, it's had a huge impact.
It also had an impact on other programming as well, like Miami Vice. When Miami Vice debuted, you can't tell me that MTV did not have an influence on Miami Vice because of the way Miami Vice was shot. Look at the beginning of the first episode of Miami Vice where they're playing the song In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins.
Yeah, that's true.
When those two guys are like driving to meet like some drug dealers or something like that they're going to bust and they might get killed or something, and Don Johnson phones his ex-wife and is like, from the phone booth, and he's like, "We had something special, didn't we?" You know? Because he thinks he might die. You know, we had something, didn't we? And the way it was cut and edited and all that, that was MTV.
Yeah,
you know,
music video.
It was MTV, and then Miami Vice ended up influencing all these shows that came after it.
Right,
you know?
right. And I was just thinking, you bring up Florida. The other thing that MTV did was their spring break.
Yeah.
They had their spring break.
God, I used to hate that stuff.
And you got Pauly Shore out of that.
Well, it led to girls going wild, I guess. So
it's like I had friends who used to watch that stuff, and I'm like, and I'd go over to
I
their
used
place.
to watch it. I mean, the first years, yeah, I'd watch their spring break.
I used to go over to their place. I'm like, you know, you're not there, man. What is the point of watching this stuff? You're not there.
It's because you're not there.
Look at all the fun. Look at all the fun these people are having while you're sitting on your goddamn couch.
They're having fun, so I don't have to.
I don't want to watch this.
Yeah, he always kind of felt like the real uncool kid. Is like, why isn't my life like that?
Exactly.
You mean people actually go to things like this?
Yeah, I know. There's chicks and bikinis and drinking booze in the middle of the day in the sunshine.
Brevity, basically televised. And then they had their one summer, they had their MTV Amuck in America, where they like traveled. I remember that because I watched that. I mean, they traveled, America and stopping here and there, and MTV just Amuck in America, just party wherever they stopped. So that was fun. It was a fun time.
And
it was.
And plus, towards when you had all the hair metal and everything, the hair bands in the late 80s, you had a whole bunch of videos with barely clad model-ish women.
It was terrible that they did that.
That was and it was
awful.
Back then, that was, unless you had like a movie channel, that was the closest thing you got to like, real life nudity.
That in the Sears catalog. I mean, the bra catalog, that was it. That's all we had back then. We had to use our imaginations back then.
All right, that's our show for this week. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check us out next week when those 80s kids remember John Hughes movies. Love them. In the meantime, check us out at those80skidsremember.com. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and SoundCloud. I'm Andy.
I'm Rob.
I'm Craig.
Thank you for joining us.